Did Liberty show the Sun Belt the way to the New Year's Six-Day Bowl? It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, a little tardy with today's episode. I apologize for that. We'll talk about Liberty without trying to show them too much shade. ULM has their coach. He's got an interesting background, and we'll go over the bowl game lines. Some interesting ones. I don't know a whole lot about their opponents, a little something, but not a whole lot. So we will discuss that certainly. There's the preliminary lines, and then we can get deeper into it the closer we get to the ball games. All right, so Liberty, undefeated, 13-0. They're heading to the Fiesta Bowl. They're taking on Oregon in the New Year's Six-Day Bowl. It was reported Monday that Bo Nix will be playing in that bowl game. So Oregon and Georgia, and Florida State for that fact of matter, although Georgia and Florida State are playing against each other. You know, those three teams are, the top three teams just not to show up in a bowl game, right? They're very disappointed. Oregon disappointed in the way they played against Washington. Georgia didn't get in because they lost to Alabama. And of course, we all know about Florida State situation. Okay. So Troy is playing what Josh Botwell said from the Troy Messenger. I thought it was different, but I saw his tweet from yesterday. Troy will be the first time that a Sun Belt team is playing a Power 5 team in a bowl game, and it's in Birmingham. That makes it very convenient for all the Troy fans, is not getting a plane and finding a place to play, finding a place to stay in South Florida, although, or in Phoenix, as the case may be, if they were going to the Orange Bowl. But obviously convenient, save some money. I mean, hashtag always a bright side. But Troy ends up losing two ball games, one to JMU by 2 points, and losing to K-State, which is a top 25-ish, top 30 team in the nation, right? That is a money game, right? Liberty's a little bit different. Liberty is well-financed. All right, I think Jamie Chadwell, I thought Jamie Chadwell, the reports, he's making like $4 million. He's got to be the highest paid G5 coach in America, and I don't think it's really close. He may be getting the same amount of money as Willie Fritz is, who just went from Tulane to Houston, and those are on par in terms of the salary. So Liberty doesn't need the money per se, where other teams do. Sometimes teams play two Power 5 teams to, finance the whole athletic department. So I want to try and not throw shade towards Liberty's way because they do their own thing and that's fine. That doesn't mean, and because we saw this, over a couple of weeks with the Jaden Daniels and the Heisman Trophy thing, right? Like people are poo-pooing Bo Nix and Michael Penix or poo-pooing Jaden Daniels. I'm like, well, hold on. These guys all played really well, right? All three of them are finalists along with Marvin Harrison Jr. So they all had really good seasons. I happen to think Jaden Daniels had a little bit better of a season than the other two or three. But that doesn't mean I have to insult or put down, the other two to make my point, right? That doesn't change the fact, however, having said that doesn't change the fact that Liberty played, according to ESPN, you can find different schedule rankings at different sites, but according to ESPN, Liberty played the worst schedule in America. Their strength of schedule was 133 out of 133, and there were no Power 5 games. They did play, three out of five. They played New Mexico. They played Bowling Green in the MAC, Buffalo in the MAC, and Massachusetts. And they did play Old Dominion. They did beat the Sun Belt's Old Dominion pretty handily, should say, in Liberty, 38-10. But there's no Power 5 team. All right. There's not even, the Cajuns played Minnesota. So, compared to, regardless of the outcome of the record, right? Like Arkansas State played Oklahoma. Think ULM played A&M, right? Those are some top flight teams. South Alabama did play Oklahoma State. That played for the Big 12 championship, regardless of what you might think of them. But Liberty decided not to. Liberty decided we're going to go win all our football games, and it paid off, right? They did their best wins, their best 2 wins are against New Mexico State. They beat them twice. New Mexico State's had a heck of a season. Did I see? What did I see was Mexico State's record here? New Mexico State is 10-4. So do they get an extra game in there? New Mexico State is 10-4. 2 of those losses are to Liberty. But maybe that's the way to do it, right? Instead of getting your butt handed to you by a Power 5 team and collecting a check, you don't do that. And so some of these schools, I don't know about football. I mean, ODU got Wake to come in. West Virginia went to Marshall, right? That was big. And some others are playing some Power 5 schools. ODU played, who played Virginia Tech to begin with? Let me check that out. Someone had Virginia Tech on the schedule. Anyways, the point is, some were wins. ODU should have beaten Wake Forest. Obviously, JMU went to Virginia to begin the season, and they won that ball game. That was a come-from-ahead victory. But is it worth it playing those Power 5 schools when it's just for money, whereas maybe you'd make more, although I don't know what the total payout is once you get covering the costs and having to split it with the conference, getting to one of those bowl games. And certainly, is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth it if you can make it up on the back end, right? Plus, you get the media coverage for a month. All of that goes with it, right? If you're in the Orange Bowl, maybe, or, a Power 5, in a New Year's 6-day bowl. In this case, it's the Fiesta Bowl. I keep on conflating those two. But maybe that's the way to go, right? Maybe, the Cajuns want, first of all, the Cajuns fans want, Power 5 school to come in, and maybe that'll happen when the stadium is built, but they can't even go play, generally speaking, I guess they got Minnesota, which is fine. In a couple of years, they get Michigan State. In a couple of years, we'll see. That could propel them to a nice bowl game. So again, I don't want to diss Liberty because they did go 13-0. It's not the players' fault who they scheduled. That's not on them. But the administration says we don't need the money, and they're in the New York 6-day bowl. They're underdog by 16. I happen to think if Oregon shows up, I don't think this game's going to be very close at all. All right. Troy happens to be a 7-point favorite over Duke. That may or may not have to do with Riley Leonard in the transfer portal, which probably does. But see, I would put Troy up against the Clemsons of the world. You give me the top 20 teams, and I would put Troy. You want to put Troy up against Louisville after what we've seen the last couple of weeks? I would. Right? Troy's pretty good. All right, Troy's really good. As much as I would have liked to see Troy versus Liberty, but Troy's getting Duke. And I guess that might mean more. All right. And obviously Liberty is in the Fiesta Bowl. So they'll take that every single time. But again, if Liberty can take advantage, because if they jump on top, Oregon's may decide that they're not interested. So we'll see. All right. But Bo Nix is scheduled to play in that ball game, and he could lead the charge. Let's move on. Let's finish up strong, that kind of deal. Right. So we'll see what happens there. All right. Let's take a timeout. All right. ULM apparently has their coach. All right. He's got an interesting background. I did not know of it. I should have. We'll do that when we come back. Let me tell you about Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on the tickets right up until the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the best place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Reports have a ULM getting their guy, Bryant Vincent. Our paths have not crossed, but he's certainly been in the neighborhood. All right, he is or was the offensive coordinator and QB's coach for New Mexico, not New Mexico State, but New Mexico. However, he is from and spent a lot of time in the, I don't know about the footprint, well, the Sunbelt footprint, we'll put it that way. Not necessarily the ULM footprint, but he's certainly well aware of ULM. He coached Spanish Fort to a state championship and went 49-16. Spanish Fort is powerhouse on the other side of the bay from Mobile, Alabama, if you will. They would be Riley Leonard's Fairhope Pirates' main rival, so to speak. All right. So he took that gig and ended up coaching a couple of different times at South Alabama. All right. He coached from 2011 and 13 to 2015 to 2017. So again, I was in Lafayette the first time, and then he was gone, and I went to Mobile. And then he ended up at UAB and took over after Bill Clark retired due to back pain. And he was there as the interim coach. I say this is important because, again, until I looked it up, I did not know who Bryant Vincent was. I certainly know of him. There may have been a little shenanigans about a certain quarterback being recruited to South Alabama who ended up at UAB following his coach. Just saying. But I don't know Bryant Vincent at all. And just knowing his background a little bit, because, again, I would tell you, all right, ULM is the hardest job in FBS football. The funding is little. The fan support is little. The reason it's at such a tough place to play, suffice it to say, is because the fans don't come out. You have to generate your own enthusiasm, whether that's basketball or football. You have to, it's one thing going on the road and you get all excited because you're playing in front of a good crowd and you can quiet them down. But when you go on the road and there's less than 10,000 fans there, although I think ULM started to do a little bit better this year. It's tough, especially if it's an early game. All right. And so that's why it's so tough to play at ULM sometimes. And so this guy, Bryant Vincent, if he's the guy, is very well aware of the issues facing ULM. All right. And so we'll see. I mean, forget NIL, right? They got to get people just to buy tickets and to buy sponsorships to the games, right? The NIL is the cherry on top of the cake, on top of the frosting, on top of the whipped cream, right? I'm not sure, ULM has the cake. Meanwhile, everything else. So, I mean, you really are starting low and expectations are low. That's the thing. All right. The hashtag, there's always a bright side. If you do well, then there's a possibility of moving up quickly. All right. I mean, Syracuse guy, Syracuse fan. I know Fran Brown, he says he's staying there. We'll see. All right. One ACC championship and a New Year's Six-Day Bowl later. We'll see if he's coming back. All right. Really happy that he's there. Seems like they got the right guy, but don't make promises that you're probably not going to keep. And I don't mind that to be the case. All right. But the idea is he's going to be in there and he's going to get this recruiting thing going back the way it should be. He's going to set a foundation. If Bryant Vincent can set a foundation and he's there for 3 or 4 years, and God forbid, they get to 500, they win 6 games, they go to a bowl game, then all of a sudden if he moves on to another Power 5 or a G5 job, or somehow he gets a Power 5 job from ULM, that would be a neat trick. He can leave an assistant, a coordinator behind, and they can be a head coach, and they can make the same jump some 5 years later. So it's important that he knows the issues facing ULM. It is not some, Northeast, Northwest, Midwest coach, although he's coming from the West Coast. He has spent a lot of time in the Sun Belt footprint, and I think that's important. He knows all about ULM. If you're a coach at South Alabama, he knows all about ULM, and if he's a high school coach at Spanish Fort, he certainly knows that as well. So, and some guys that you may know from Spanish Fort, I think DJ James from Auburn went to Spanish Fort. Chris Abrams-Drain from Missouri went to Spanish Fort. Sterling Dixon, an Alabama recruit, Spanish Fort eventually. So they got some. They are a talented bunch over there, and so he's very well aware. And I think that's important for John Hartwell, just not to get somebody who's just looking for a head coaching job and going to use it to move on. All right, he's very well aware of the issues facing ULM, and we're wishing Bryant Vincent the best. The better ULM is, the better everybody else is. Right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. And right now in the Sun Belt, as good as they are, ULM is the weakest link. All right, let's take a time out. When we come back, we'll do the bowl game lines. Look at early bowl game lines. Some are interesting. Some are head-scratching, is the way I would put it. But let me tell you about LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that's 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt. Your team every day. We're doing the drive for 1,000. Not off to the best of all starts, but we do appreciate everybody who is subscribing, trying to get 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So thanks so much for doing it. Please, if you see it in YouTube and Facebook and wherever, social media, please like, please subscribe. Also, don't forget about the audio downloads. Wherever you get your audio podcast from, you can search Locked On Sunbelt. Again, Apple Podcasts and Spotify appear to be the most popular. Okay. Let's go over these quickly, these bowl game odds. And again, these are from FanDuel. I will say that to begin with. Some are interesting and some are a little head scratching. All right. The closer ones they are what they are. All right. So Ohio is the -2.5 point favorite over Georgia Southern in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Don't find that surprising at all. Georgia Southern has gone in the opposite, in the completely wrong direction. And I don't know much about Ohio, so I'm basing that on Georgia Southern's issues. Jacksonville State, 3.5. They actually have they're 3.5 point favorites over the Cajuns in the Dome. Jacksonville State's been very good against the spread. I'll look that up later on. But early on in the season, they were like 8-0, 9-0 against the spread. So they're pretty good. All right. Here's a little bit of a surprising one. The Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl. App State is a 6.5-point favorite over Miami. Miami just took down Toledo. I think they have like 2 losses. They're like 11-2. And one of the losses was to Toledo, and they just beat them. And Toledo's really good. So I'm a little bit surprised at that one. I appreciate what Sean Clark and App State have done to bounce back. I'm not surprised App State is favored. I'm a little surprised that they are favored by almost a touchdown. Famous Toastery Bowl, ODU, a 2.5-point favorite over Western Kentucky. Austin Reed and company have a chance to go 2-0 against the Sun Belt here in back-to-back bowl games. They did a number on South Alabama last year. Scooter's Coffee Frisco Bowl. I got to get to Scooter's Coffee. Just opened up a new one here in Lafayette. I'm not a big coffee drinker in terms of multiple cups a day, but we'll just taste it, see if it's any different. To be honest with you, I can't tell the difference between coffees. I can't. If you give me black coffee, won't be able to tell the difference. UTSA, a 9.5-point favorite over Marshall. That seems to be right. That may be a little bit large, but Marshall's just been this roller coaster ride of a season. The 76 Birmingham Bowl, we told you Troy is a 7-point favorite over Duke. That's basically a home game for Troy, and no Riley Leonard for Duke, at least not yet. He's already scheduled his time to Notre Dame. I presume he's not going to play for the Duke Blue Devils. We'll see if someone talks him into, being one of the guys. Okay. Camellia Bowl, Arkansas State, 1.5-point favorite over Northern Illinois. All right. Maybe a lot of people will come down there. That's in Montgomery, not that far from Arkansas State, obviously closer than Northern Illinois, but that seems to be about right. Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, James Madison, a 2.5-point favorite over Air Force. Is that because Kurt Signetti left? I mean, Jordan McLeod says he's going to play in the bowl game despite going into the transfer portal. I'd have James Madison a lot more. Now, you got to make sure Jordan McLeod's playing. All right, so maybe hold off and wait. I would have James Madison a much bigger favorite than that. Air Force also did not play a very good schedule. And then when they started playing teams that were better than they were just a little bit, they did not fare well. A little bit surprised about this one. Georgia State, 2.5-point favorite against Utah State in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Georgia State from Atlanta. Isn't that in Boise? They're favored? Okay. Not buying that one. 68 Ventures Bowl, South Alabama, a huge favorite, although they will be the road team. I'm not sure why that's the case, but it is. They'll be playing Eastern Michigan in Hancock Whitney. I'm begging you. It's not Pack the Wit. No one cares about the Wit. I don't know what the Wit is. All right. I know you're doing your sponsors a favor. Call it the bank. You're doing your much better favor. The Wit is about as lame as a nickname for a stadium as you can find. All right. Pack, open up the vault, close the bank, whatever it is. Come up with some play on words. There's no play on words on the Wit. All right. Jeez. The Eastern Michigan quarterback, he has decided not to play in the bowl game, but we saw that with Austin Reed last year as well with Western Kentucky. So we'll hold off to see if he comes back. Although I'm not sure South Alabama should be favored by 15.5 points over anybody. I'm really, really not. And we don't know if Colin Lacey's playing. They may win by that much, but I wouldn't bet on them. Based on the results of this season, they may win the ball game, but I'm not buying that. They just haven't played up to their standards for most of the season. A couple of games in there, but not a lot. The Easy Post Hawaii Bowl, San Jose State, 9.5-point favorite over Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina have a quarterback, right? Are we down to Ethan Vasco? Is that where we are? That may be the issue. And I don't think Grayson McCall could play anyways with his injury, but they may be thin with, I think we had like 12 or 13 guys transfer out. And then you have Texas State and Rice. Texas State, a 4.5-point favorite over Rice in the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl. I kind of like that. That one makes sense. So there are some ones that are interesting. I'm not sure why App State is such a huge favorite. I'm not surprised that they are favored, but Miami's pretty good, so that seems to be a lot. I think the South Alabama line is more about Eastern Michigan than about South Alabama. I also think James Madison should be much bigger favorite. Obviously, Troy is favored due to no Riley Leonard, and there's some others that I'm not quite sure about. Georgia Southern seems about right. The Louisiana one may be an interesting one to take. playing in the Dome. They are, they just played there a couple of years ago. That was Mike Desmo's first ball game. All right, thanks very much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. We'll continue to do more shows throughout the week. We got to start talking about some basketball. We got a big one in a couple of weeks. The Cajuns going to McNeese. That may not sound like a lot, but look up Cajun and LSU NIT. Tell me what you find, because we got a Bob Marlin, Will Wade showdown. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's in a few weeks. All right, again, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Thanks for watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.